coming. All right, welcome to Creation versus Evolution Debate 2021. We have two teams that are well prepared. They've been working for weeks at this. So this is going to be a format where I'm going to ask everyone to stay quiet while they are speaking. Please hold any applause towards the end. We have several rounds. There will be 3-minute speaking rounds followed by 3-minute rebuttal rounds, and then a 3-minute crossfire where the teams get to shoot questions at each other, followed by another round of that and a summary, and a last shot where they try to convince you that they are the winner. Please, both sides remain respectful, audience remain respectful. No matter what happens, if they get nervous, just let them keep going. We're going to start with a coin toss. I need my team captains to come up. For the first coin toss, we are going to let Creation call in the air. It is tails. Would you like to present first, or would you like to present first, or would you like to rebut first? Present first. All right, you will hear the evolution side first. I will start a 3-minute timer. When the timer expires, you will hear a sound.
Wait, David, which one's pro and which one's con?
Pro is creation, con is evolution. So con is going first.
Alright.
Okay. Wade, are you ready?
Yes.
You have 3 minutes starting now.
Okay. So one of the biggest arguments against evolution is that in the fossil record there's a lack of evidence, or the missing link is not real. If you don't know what a missing link is, it is a fossil that has an evolutionary jump from ape to man. My argument is that the missing link is a false theory, and that the answer to this is intermediate fossils. Intermediate fossils are fossils that show transitions throughout a species' history. A good example of a species with a lot of intermediate fossils are whales. They have over 60 fossils proving this, and I have 6 of them for you. The first example is the Pakicetus. It is the oldest whale fossil. It is land-dwelling, and it had ears similar to a modern whale, most likely for hearing underwater, meaning it's most likely amphibious. The second example is the Ambulocetus. It has pretty much the same ears as a modern whale, and its feet are expanding for swimming, so most likely have fins, and so now it's more adapted for the water. The third and fourth examples are the Myocetus and the Rhodocetus. Its feet and spine are now more adapted for swimming, so you can see how it's going from land-dwelling to more modern whales. Those are between 49 to 40 million years old. The last 2 examples are the Dorodon and the Basilosaurus. These are now fully aquatic with tails that move up and down, and they still have limbs, but they can no longer support on land. As you can see, the missing link, I feel like that you can't just, one fossil can't just make that evolutionary jump. There has to be, over time, there has to be multiple fossils showing this change in evolution, through evolution. You can also see this in human evolution. Human evolution took about 6 million years, is believed. And you can see how, like, the first descendants of man and ape, they were herbivores. And as time went on, their teeth changed, their muscles changed, and they developed hands for developing tools. So you can also see how their brains are changing, and also the tools that they made, they became more and more modern and more useful. And you can also see, like, and just basically the missing link, it's just a false theory, and I believe that intermediate fossils are the answer for evolution. And, yeah, okay, that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Good job.
You had 10 minutes left. What? You had 10 minutes left. No. Or 10 seconds left.
Oh, I was about to say.
All right, who is
Math's not adding up here.
Like,
10 seconds, sorry. It's been a long morning. All right, Gavin, you ready? Sure. Starting now.
Alright, comets, they're estimated to only exist for around 100,000 years. but the universe is said to be 4.5 billion years old, so how would we still have comets?
Comments?
Yes.
Okay, this isn't a question round. You're just presenting evidence.
You said it was a rebuttal.
Rebuttal. You're just presenting evidence. Crossfire is where you ask the question.
I don't have anything.
Okay, yeah, yeah, both sides of the podium there. Okay, now is when you'll ask questions back and forth. Alright, starting with,
So comets are only believed to exist for 100,000 years, but the universe is said to exist for 4.5 billion years. So how do we still have comets?
I believe that the universe, when it was created, that comets are, I guess, fragments of, I guess, other planets. So, like, as the universe started expanding, creating other planets, that they just started colliding, I guess. I don't know.
So for natural selection, what would you do about the disabled people with disabilities like blind, deaf, and paralyzed?
I mean, there's something that you can do. I mean, they just had a genetic, or their DNA, which is, I guess, they just had an error in their DNA or something, like when evolution was designing them. So. I can.
if you have,
I don't know.
There's an argument at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland about a missing day, but in Joshua 10:13, you see that it says God stopped the sun for a battle to be over. How would you explain that?
What do you mean missing day?
That there was a day like missing from time.
I guess human error.
So a lot of people believe that Darwin didn't he didn't go from evolution to Christian, but Lady Hope was his well friend and a neighbor, and she was an eyewitness from Darwin to Christianity from evolution. Would often walk in seeing him read the Bible. How would you explain that?
He found evidence that strongly supported evolution, and so he believed that more. And he just thought evolution was real.
That's all.
What we will do now is creation. I will have your first speaker come up.
Alright. The two main differences between evolution and creation are probably the age gap. Creation teaches that it's probably around 6,000 to 10,000 years, anywhere between that. Evolution teaches that it's going to be like the Earth is 4.6 million years and the universe is 14 billion years. It's pretty crazy. But I believe it takes a lot of faith to believe both sides. But there are some about creation that I believe can be proven as a fact. 2 Peter chapter 3 says that in the last days, scoffers would be ignorant of the flood and the creation. A lot of the geological structures we have today could only be a result of the flood. In those days, the earth was under and above the water from like a firmament, which in Genesis it mentions a firmament, and it was also created above water. So like water would be like in the mantle. So the earth would crack up like an eggshell, and it would flood the earth. Now, one of the major proofs of the flood are subduction plates. With water coming in, there would be major plate tectonic shifts, and it would cause layers of the crust to be submerged below the mantle, which means cool rock. It would slide into the center of the earth. NASA did a discovery on the mantle and found that there was cool rock. If the earth is like millions of years, as evolutionists say, wouldn't it be hot by now? Which doesn't really make any sense. So it proves that the earth is much younger than we think. Another proof are bent mountains. Also, if the earth is this old, how could rock bend? I don't know if you ever tried to like bend a rock, but it doesn't exactly bend. It breaks, if that makes sense. So how would it bend? Well, the flood teaches that all these layers are around the same age, and the flood would pick up sediments and deposit them. And so, and then plate tectonics would cause the mountains to be shaped in different shapes. Another proof is coal. Coal in the false layer, which is based off of the Grand Canyon. Charles Lyell was the one who discovered the geologic column. And he only really created it just to disprove the science of Moses. So that's a lot of what evolution teaches. But what coal says is that if you were to measure the carbon-14 in all coal layers in the geologic column, and the coal layers would be found like millions of years apart, the carbon-14 is not, the carbon-14 is consistent in all layers, so that means all the layers had to have been the same age. These layers would have formed in one day. And that's about all I have to say.
Good job.
Rebuttal? Remember, you're just presenting facts for any questions next time.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Gavin. Did not like prepare for this part, so I guess.
Okay, we can move on to the crossfire. Come back. Starting in the middle.
First question, like, why do you believe in creation? Like, what makes you think you're right?
I don't think there's enough evidence supporting evolution and like that it ever could have occurred, and it doesn't really explain how life necessarily began from non-life. Do you believe the universe came from nothing, like a Big Bang or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Not quite sure.
You ask. All right. Is there any evidence in the fossil record, or I guess the geologic column, that transitional forms have been discovered, or like any mutation has been discovered in those fossils? No. Have mutations ever really created a beneficial organ or appendage?
Can also.
Okay.
Why do you think you changed my mind on evolution?
I think there's more evidence pointing towards a lot of the geological structures coming from like a biblical flood. So if the flood is proven fact, I think also a lot of other things in the Bible are scientifically accurate as well. And so I think it's just you got to read the Bible and see kind of what it talks about and where God intervenes to disrupt science.
If I don't believe in the Bible, what else do you think?
Well, you don't really have to believe in the Bible. You just have to go off of what in the Bible can be proven fact, say like flood. Okay. Don't the first and second laws of thermodynamics disprove like a Big Bang? Because the Big Bang is like a singularity of an infinitely dense point with no volume exploding into the universe. Wouldn't the first and second laws of thermodynamics disprove that? How?
I guess that's all I got.
Okay. Do you think that aging fossils using carbon-14 or radiometric dating, do you think they're reliable methods for discovering the true age of the Earth?
Yes.
Why? Because radiometric dating, several tests have it coming back inconsistent, so do you believe that? Okay.
Okay. Time for the summary round. So, captains, come back. Come back. This time, Jessica, you will call it in the air. It is heads. Would you like to go first or second? Okay. All right, creation, summary.
Yeah, Will. Let's go, Will. Yeah, Will. Give us that Reddit knowledge.
Well, first, I would like to address the fact of the experiment done to recreate what was supposed to happen to create the first amino acids that ever happened. I crunched the numbers and I found out that mathematically it is theoretically impossible that it could have happened within 4.6 billion years. A lightning strike chance is 1 in 500,000, right? And it each lasts 0.2 seconds. And in the experiment, they struck the same pool of water for over a week. And 1 week is 604,800 seconds. You do that times 0.5, which I guess would equal 2.2 seconds, or 0.2 seconds, and that would be just a 3,224,000 seconds that it had to strike it over and over. And the width of a bolt is 3 centimeters. Means it had to strike the exact same place with 30 centimeters over the square coverage of the Earth, which is 637.1 million square centimeters. Which means it would have to strike the same place over and over for every second for a week straight, the exact same spot. I would also like to address Cade's remark about whales, how they said that they kept constantly going through more genetic evolution. Well, apparently during evolution that it would be caused by mutations. But mutations don't actually cause new genetic material, it causes a loss of already known genetic material corruptions that get constantly canceled out as generations go on. I'd also like to point out what most atheists like to believe, the tailbone, or the coxswain of the human, was actually leftover genetic material from people having a tail, relating us back to primates. And actually, it's an extremely important source of attachment for tendons, muscles, and ligaments that help our legs move. I'd also like to point out the appendix, how they say that, how rabbits have a really large appendix for eating grass and digesting it. Well, the appendix is actually a part of the immune system that is helpful for fetuses and young babies and most young adults. And also, Albert Einstein said energy cannot be created nor destroyed. And humans have been measured to have 3 dimensions, which means we have a soul. We've been weighed after death and found out that we will weigh less when we are dead, which means we have a soul that leaves our body when our consciousness is gone. So that counts as spiritual energy, which means spiritual energy cannot be destroyed, it only changes stages. Which means that proves that after life, after when we die, our consciousness goes somewhere. We don't know where it goes, but it doesn't just disappear. That's all I got.
Interesting. Yeah, Jessica.
The evidence for evolution is found at all levels of organization. In living things and in the extinct species we know about through fossils, fossils provide evidence for the evolutionary change. Through now extinct forms that led to modern species, for example, there is a rich fossil record that shows the evolutionary transitions from horse ancestors to modern horses that document intermediate forms and a gradual adaptation, changing ecosystems. The anatomy of species and the embryological development of that anatomy reveal common structures in divergent lineages that have been modified over time by evolution. The geographical distribution of living species reflects the origins of species in particular geographic locations and the history of continental movements. The structures of molecules like anatomical structures reflect the relationships of living species and match patterns of similarity expected with modification. There aren't fossils of every species that lived out there, but there are now thousands of fossil specimens in the Welt lineage alone that fit into this pattern.
Alright, it'll now be time for a 3-minute grand crossfire where teams can shoot questions back and forth. Everyone stay at your seat. We will flip a coin to see who gets the first question. This will also be the first team to get last shot. So team captains, one more time. Gavin, call it in the air.
Tails.
It is heads. Would you like to go first or second? Second, okay. So, Creation, you will get the first question. You will also get the first last shot. This is a 3-minute round starting now.
Is morality instilled in anybody?
I would say morality we developed over, like, we saw that, like, different things that harmed us, that we saw that, since we saw the stuff that harmed us, that we decided that we can't do that. It obviously hurts us in ways, so we just decided to set our laws up so that we can live and live peacefully with that.
Okay, well, why do people need peace in this?
Their turn.
So, Landon, you said that the rocks can't bend and that the flood was the reason for rocks changing shape, and that the earth is only like, what, 10,000 years old?
6,000.
6,000? So why can't the earth be billions of years old, and that like sand, different things like sand and different other types of erosion change the shape of the rock?
So, like, what are you asking again?
So is it possible for another way for rocks to change shape over time with billions of years?
Well, I think the pressure exerted on the rocks, like forming mountains and stuff like that, I think under that pressure, I think rock would snap, not necessarily bend. I think the only way it can bend is if it was still soft, like if it was like just laid down by like a flood or something like that. I think it'd have to be like mud to be able to be bent and then harden over time.
So, could you name me a famous atheist with us?
Charles Darwin.
Okay. Alright. I was just...
said that that was the tail was what'd you say again? Sorry.
That the tailbone is a point where ligaments,
Right.
muscles, and tendons attach, open the legs.
Okay.
Connected.
So why couldn't the tail? I imagine the tail had a bunch of tendons, ligaments all on it. So why can't the tail just like when it? I guess as evolution went on.
Time for this round. All right, now we'll move into the 1 minute final argument. Creation, you will go first.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to our arguments today. Currently, we've heard from our opposing team that at the beginning that whales apparently walked on land, correct? So we have seen through mutation, material corruptions that they can't produce new material. So if a whale could